Next, we are going to have Chief Educational Officer of Foria Wellness. I know you've probably seen Foria's Instagram. It is lit, but Kiana Reeves is the Chief Educational Officer. I'm so excited to have her, especially because we were just talking about Foria's products with Sophie, but now we're going to actually have a higher up from Foria coming through talking to us about it. So get your questions ready. Yeah, I want to know what else you want to know. Right now, what I want to ask Kiana is about the pleasure gap. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. And then I saw in the comments that you guys were talking about dry pussy syndrome. So I want to know about that too, because I hear that that can be a side effect of THC. But my favorite moment with talking with Sophie is turning your pussy into an edible. Somebody in the comments, Amber, said, put that on a shirt. I agree. I agree. So, next up, let's go.
Hello.
Hi. How
Hi.
are you?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. We are
Good. I'm
so
out
happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too. I'm in Topanga Canyon and there's a lot of construction happening. So
Beautiful. It's a lovely day to be out in Topanga Canyon. Well, welcome. I want to give you a quick introduction to my audience. You are the Chief Educational Officer at Foria Wellness. You are a sex educator, pelvic care practitioner, certified doula, and so much more. Welcome.
thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I have a question for you that haven't fully understood. So I just want to know if you can explain the pleasure gap for us.
Yes. It's a kind of in-depth topic, but essentially what the pleasure gap is when you're looking at studies that have been done largely on cis, white, heterosexual people. The women identified in those studies have experience far less orgasm and climax in their sexual experiences than their male counterparts. So essentially, it's the amount of orgasms or climaxes that women are having versus men. And this is different within different communities. For example, within queer, lesbian, and bisexual relationships, there is less of a gap when it comes to orgasm. So that's really like the summation of what the pleasure gap is.
That's interesting. Can you talk a little bit about CBD and libido?
Yeah, well, libido is this complex, another complex topic for us to talk about. Libido is the felt sense of, desiring, essentially, desiring sexual connection and intimacy. And a whole lot of different factors go into that, not just how you're relating to, say, a partner or in a relationship, but that kind of innate instinctual drive and wanting to connect and experience physical pleasure. Libido is very much impacted by external, environmental, and internal factors, including hormones, including your stress hormones are very, very fundamental in kind of allowing you to feel libidinous or feel that type of desire. And I think one thing that's really important to note is our nervous systems are very, very much dictating our felt safety. So when you look at the landscape of wanting to have sex, it has to be in an environment where you feel safe and secure and kind of regulated. Because when you're looking at the biological function, if we're in flight or fight or chronic upregulation, which is stress, and a lot of us nowadays are kind of feeling that, it's very hard to feel not consciously but subconsciously in the body, like your body doesn't prioritize sex and connection in the same way it would if you're feeling very secure. So one amazing thing about CBD that I love is that it works with your nervous system to help regulate and to provide a sense of homeostasis, reducing anxiety, reducing stress, which gives a bigger window to your body to be able to be available for something like intimacy and sexual connection. The other thing that it does on a topical level, so libido is more like an emotional feeling. It's like a feeling you have in your body. Arousal is the experience of your body actually getting turned on. And so CBD and arousal, what it can support there, and cannabis in general, a lot of cannabinoids have amazing compounds. Many plants work for this. But when you're applying certain cannabinoids topically on your genitals, especially if you're a woman or you have a vulva, what is happening there is that it really is supporting the blood flow to those tissues. And as soon as you have blood flow in the genitals, just like if you have a penis, you get an erection, it's kind of like an internal erection. All of the blood flow comes, it lubricates the vaginal walls, it engorges your clitoris, engorges your labia. And all of those things are actually what makes sex feel good. So if you're not aroused, nothing, no penetration, no stimulation is really going to feel that great. And so CBD and other plant compounds can really help facilitate that.
That's amazing. So then can you tell us about some products that Foria has that can give the female like her internal erection?
Yeah, the internal erection, I love it. That's the first time we've talked about that. We have a lot. We have a full intimacy line that's really been devoted and developed for anybody who has a vulva. And I'd say that there's four of the products. One has been off market for a while. The first is Awaken, and that's where I would start because Awaken is an arousal oil. And it's made with CBD, it's made with 8 other organic plant extracts, and they're all working synergistically to bring that blood flow to the genitals and really kind of like increasing that sensation, increasing lubrication, like helping you like get ready, like setting the stage. And then we have our lube, and a lot of people mistake Awaken for a lube because of the way that it's used, and we're only taught about lubes, but really our lube is like a bedroom essential. If you're having sex, no matter who you are, even if you're not using an arousal oil, you should be using a lube because it helps everything feel so much better. It can prevent micro tears. It enhances sensation, like just by using a lube, you enhance pleasurable sensation by like 30% because of the glide factor, and because those tissues are so sensitive, and they need a lot of moisture. So the lube we created either to be used by itself or in partnership with our other products, but that's really like your bedroom essential. Use it every time, add more when you need it. Awaken, you only need like a very little of, and you kind of let that absorb. And then we have our intimacy suppositories, which is a real concentrated dose of CBD delivered intravaginally or rectally. And I love this product because it's really the first of its kind. We developed it because people were like having such profound responses to Awaken. And you can't get that much of the oil intravaginally unless you're squirting it inside you with like a syringe or something. And so to really like, people with vulvas have so many pleasurable sensations internally. And so to support that, we developed the intimacy suppository, which is 50 milligrams of CBD, broad spectrum, in organic cocoa butter. And it's just delivered like right to the place where your body can absorb it, bring the blood flow to your G-spot, bring the blood flow to your cervix, relax all of those muscles, like really soften and allow for deep penetration. And this is off topic, but we just did this big campaign around orgasms because a lot of people don't know that there's at least 10 different types of orgasms you can have, like at least cervical, breast orgasms. There's something called your AFE zone. Some people can orgasm anally. And so it's all of, there's so much capacity in our body for pleasure when we really give the time to explore, and the suppositories can really help facilitate that. And then the last one in the intimacy line that we developed, what is our Flow Pen, which is about to come back on the market. It's been off for about 6 months. And that's really because so many of us are in our heads all the time. We're going all day. You know, we're focused on all our projects, all of our external world. And intimacy, either with ourselves or with a partner, requires us to slow down, requires us to be in our bodies, requires us to just like take in the moment through our sensations. And so this pen was designed to be kind of like an out of your head into your body experience.
Oh, wow. I'm looking forward to that. And I definitely will have to agree with the fact that lube does improve sex. It just makes things so much more fun. So I want to try that Foria lube, even for self-pleasure, because that's something that I think a lot of women don't do enough of. We know men have their fun with it. But I think a lot of women, when talking about it, it makes them uncomfortable or they just don't do it. I have tons of friends that have never owned a vibrator, which blows my mind.
Yeah,
But
I
um,
know.
can you talk a little bit about the intimacy journal that you guys helped create with Sophie St. Thomas? And can you tell us why we needed this?
Well, this is such a good question. How many of us had good sex ed when we were younger? Like probably no one here. How many of us were taught about pleasure in our teens when we were fumbling along trying to learn how to either pleasure our partner or pleasure ourselves? How many of us were taught how to touch our bodies in a way that like provided pleasure? Like we've literally all been like stumbling along in the dark, and in a culture that historically is kind of like puritanical views around the body and our relationship to ourselves. So from that baseline, oh, and also on top of it, we're not taught how to communicate our needs to our partners, right? We're not taught like, oh, this is how you tell someone that it doesn't feel good. We're kind of taught, particularly women are taught to endure semi-okay experiences. And so the opportunity of the intimacy journal and any self-reflection around sexual experiences is that you get to investigate a part of your life which you probably haven't investigated. It's an opportunity to dig in and to see how you can bring plant medicine into the bedroom to effectively enhance your experience with your partner, with yourself, to learn more about your body. Cannabis is one of these amazing, amazing medicines where it opens you up in a way in your thoughts and in your body to feel more, to experience more, to receive more. And so learning how to both receive information from it and also bring it into the bedroom from our pleasures, it's a really powerful tool. And then the journal itself has a lot of interesting information. Sophie and I both contributed pieces to this that are really educational, really interesting, tips on how to explore both products and your body and get to know yourself. Because really, I think something that's really important that we don't talk about is like pleasure matters, but why? You know, it's like, yeah, pleasure, like let's like have orgasms, let's masturbate, let's like, yes, it's fun, and what's the point beyond fun and feeling good? Well, it's actually an amazing reset to your nervous system to be able to feel and deeply take in pleasure to your body in a world and in a society that is chronically upregulated and stressed out and disconnected from each other. To have a moment where you are sovereign and in your experience and feeling really good can be a type of compass where you then take that moment in your life to pause, to think about what you're doing externally in the world and re-navigate so that you make sure that your connections, your relationships, your work, your family, everything you're doing is on point. And that can all come through pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cannabis has been synonymous with pleasure in my life, and many of the people who are watching, someone commented and asked, "Does THC give you cotton pussy?" I guess is the
Oh, it's so
question.
good. You would think it might, but actually does not.
Okay.
THC, the most amazing quality of the THC is that it's a vasodilator. And so when your eyes get all bloodshot and red, that's because it's bringing like so much blood to the area. It opens your blood vessels and a lot more blood comes through. It's the same with your pussy. So when you put it on, you're getting so much blood flow, which really increases your lubrication by a lot.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
then I wanted to ask, so I learned that the most abundant CB1 receptors that we have in the female's body is in our uterus. Can you
Yes.
talk more about that?
So we have a lot of receptors in our brain, central nervous system, and in our pelvis in particular, for anybody who has a uterus. And we have receptors not only in our uterus, but in our cervix, fallopian tubes, ovaries, and along our vaginal canal. And there hasn't been tons of research done on this. There's no one out there right now paying to see how cannabinoids, are absorbing into pelvic endocannabinoid receptor sites. But what we can kind of gather from what we already know about cannabis and how it's working with the body, plus the feedback that we're getting from people in our community, is that there's like a multitude of ways it's working, but you can break it down into a couple. One is that it's very relaxing and nourishing to the muscles. And there's a lot of musculature there, particularly in the pelvis, that's involved with motion. So you stand all day, you sit, you walk, you bend over. Your pelvis it's a hinge for your body. So it holds a lot of tension. So anything that helps those pelvic muscles relax and soften and open is super important. And the second is that it's anti-inflammatory. And so we have the anti-inflammatory benefits of, absorbing into those mucosal layers. For period pain, we have some menstrual pain suppositories, and those, like, inflammation causes so much of the pain from the prostaglandins. And so the inflammation and the relaxation itself are like two key components of CBD and of THC. And then the blood flow, allowing for the vasodilation into the tissues, means those tissues are nice and like supple and kept healthy and resilient and just like nourished by the blood that needs to be there and is flowing more freely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then somebody asked, does THC make sperm less active? That's a good question.
That's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to it. We were actually talking about it last week though, and I do believe that oil-based lubricants make it harder for sperm to swim through.
Okay.
I don't know if THC diminishes sperm count though.
I think I learned about that, and I think in the short term it doesn't, but chronic users may have some issues. I think
that sounds about right.
Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the tulip and what you have going on there?
Yeah, and the tulip is not it's not an alive brand anymore, but I've basically been able to infuse everything that I was doing with the tulip, which was a company that I founded with my sister, into my work with Foria. And that was really taking traditional models of pelvic care from around the world that have historically been used to support women's health, and bringing it with the science and with the educational component so that it becomes really accessible. And the idea there is that, behind both the brands, is that a lot of what women and people with vulvas experience in their lifetimes has not been prioritized by mainstream Western medicine. From everything from menstrual cramps, which I think the last pain relief method that was invented in the pharmaceutical realm was Midol, and that was in the 1920s or 1930s. And it was a rebranded hiccup drug, so it wasn't even like created for the purpose. And you look at everything to studies like on birth control and libido enhancing drugs for people with female physiology, and they're tested on men. And it's like, it even comes down to the Viagra being paid for by insurance companies but not birth control. There's so many layers to this conversation of why women's health has been deprioritized, and for us this is the reprioritization, reclamation of those important life experiences like menopause, like childbirth, like postpartum, like having your period and needing support, like endometriosis, like sex. It's huge. It's a huge part of our quality of life. So
yeah, absolutely. And somebody asked, I know we touched on this earlier, but does the pleasure gap vary across races or primarily through sexual orientation?
Well, it's only been primarily studied through sexual orientation. So it's a great question. And unfortunately, again, this is where bias comes in, is a lot of these studies have only been done on white, cis, heterosexual people. So we don't have the data around it. It's such an important conversation around research and data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to see if we have a couple of more questions. This has been very educational and informational. I'm super grateful to learn that cotton pussy is not a thing, because anytime somebody sent it to me, I get so mad, and I'm like, I'm not reading that.
I love it.
Is there anything else that you can tell us that you have going on or that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, we have some amazing products launching this fall, so I can't say much more about it, but keep an eye out. Follow us on Instagram. We have amazing blog content for anyone who wants to know more about a little bit of what I've talked about today. We have some fun sexual education blogs coming out on oral sex, so keep an eye out for that. And our product launches in the near future are going to be amazing. I think people will be excited.
I'm excited. And then I think for a good last question, what is THC lubricant about?
Yeah, so THC, well, we formulated Awaken as a like reverse engineering of what THC is doing. And essentially THC at the, like, to be really direct about it, is such a powerful vasodilator. And it sounds really simple, but having that much blood flow, that much arousal, like, okay, I'll break this down. We are taught that penetration happens pretty much right away, like, or a little bit of foreplay and then penetration, particularly in heterosexual relationships. And the problem with that is that our internal erectile tissue does not get engorged with blood or with the fluid that it needs to feel really good until much later down the path in arousal, like deep, heightened, you've maybe already had 1 or 2 orgasms type of arousal. And what the THC lubricant is helping to do is to facilitate that level of blood flow to the genitals so that you can reach those levels of arousal and actually feel really responsive to penetration. And yeah,
I love
makes
that. I'm
everything
gonna
feel
have
good.
to try this oil because I was told by a sex therapist once that it takes a woman about 45 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to get fully engorged.
Yep.
And for a man, I think from erection to ejaculation, I think it's like average 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why nature completely mismatched us like that, but I want to
Well,
thank you
this is
so much. Oh, go ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I was gonna say this is the like thing around education. Like nobody was taught how important foreplay is, right? Particularly if your partner is a person with a vulva, like to spend the time, because we're also capable of multiple orgasms. And
Mm-hmm.
when we have an orgasm, it doesn't shut us off. It actually increases more of the feel good hormones like dopamine that make us feel powerful, that make us feel creative, that make us feel relaxed and at ease in our bodies. And so the more, for a person with a vulva, like the more orgasms we have, the better. And we can keep going and going.
Yes.
Therefore, that's a whole like missed piece of our education that people need to have. And
Yeah.
then the arousal timelines sync up more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I learned that lesson through self-pleasure that,
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Right.
multiple. So
Exactly. Multiple. Exactly.
thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us and
Yeah.
educating us. Um, if you guys want to follow Kiana, you can head over to Foria or her Instagram. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, it's Kiana dot Reeves, Reevs. It's like Keanu Reeves, but Kiana.
I love that. Okay, well, thank you for joining us and have a
Yeah,
great day in the Topanga Canyon.
thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, I hope you learned. I learned. Pussies are edibles and pussy cotton or cotton pussy is a myth. I feel like this day is successful. I'm so happy. So check out Foria products. Check out the Intimacy Journal. Great education. I do have a code if you'd like a discount. So much good information. Touch yourself, get some products, and have fun. There's not enough sex education out there, so please follow Foria Wellness or follow Sophie or Kiana today to get more information. Um, I loved it. I feel somebody said women vindicated everywhere. Yeah, absolutely. Foreplay, 45 minutes, multiple orgasms could be coming your way, men. Ladies, get a vibrator. Make sure it is rechargeable and waterproof. Thank me later for that tip. And thanks for joining me today.